Nickelodeon has changed many times over the years. Known mainly for its early live-action shows and especially Nicktoons, kids tuned in to watch, and it was one of the most popular children's TV networks. But as time went on, things only got worse and it's gone completely downhill. In this video, I'm going to briefly talk about the history of Nickelodeon and what exactly caused its fall. On April 1st, 1979, Nickelodeon launched on Warner Cable System in Buffalo, New York. There were a few live-action shows that are definitely not well known, such as Pop Clips, which was a music video television program, and Pinwheel, which was a kids show similar to Sesame Street that had live-action skits and animated shorts. Other shows in this time period were America Goes Bananas, Nickel Flicks, and By the Way. In 1980, new shows were added like Dusty's Treehouse and Special Delivery. These types of shows were live action and aimed towards very young children. The next few years were alright for Nickelodeon. The channel expanded its daily programming to a surprising 13 hours every day, from 8 AM to 9 PM Eastern and Pacific time. 1984 began what was called the Golden Age of Nickelodeon. While they lost $10 million this year, new opportunities were starting to rise where the channel can finally succeed again. On July 1st, 1985, Nick became a full 24-hour channel and introduced its new night block, Nick at Night. 1988 began two huge things for this channel. First was the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, where kids can choose favorite sports players, movies, television shows, and much more. Nick Jr. was also introduced, which was a section dedicated specifically to very young children. Nickelodeon Studios was opened up in 1990 in Universal Studios, Florida in Orlando. Things really started to get interesting when Nick released its first original animated shows, Doug, Rugrats, and The Ren and Stimpy Show. At first, they didn't want to create cartoons due to the high production costs, but they decided to take this risk for potentially new demographics. On a channel where live-action shows were the reason viewers tuned in, it'd be a huge unpredictability to step into the world of cartoons. Luckily, these three shows did well and were popular among young viewers. The next few years introduced several new live-action shows, such as All That, which was a new sketch comedy show. It would launch the careers of several actors and actresses like Kenan Thompson, Amanda Bynes, and Jamie Lynn Spears. Dan Schneider, who was an executive producer on All That, went on to make many more live-action shows on the same network. Starting in 1996, Nick released movies. The first one was Harriet the Spy, a movie about a girl who finds her calling in life, which is to be a spy. This movie did very well, leading to the Rugrats movie 2 years later. Then, in May 1999, Nickelodeon debuted the cartoon that would become extremely popular in the next decade, Spongebob Squarepants. This show about a sponge living his life under the sea instantly became one of the most popular Nicktoons on the channel. The mid to late 2000s were amazing for Nick. There were tons of cartoons that did really well with viewers, such as Chalk Zone, My Life as a Teenage Robot, Danny Phantom, Jimmy Neutron, and many more. However, there were a few lesser known and enjoyed cartoons, such as El Tigre and Mr. Meaty. In 2005, Avatar: The Last Airbender was premiered and it became very popular. 2007 led Nick to enter into a 4-year deal with Sony Music to make music-themed TV shows for the network. One of these shows was Victorious, which aired from 2010 to 2013. Big Time Rush also started in 2009 and ended in 2013. Live-action shows began to get popular again. From Drake and Josh to iCarly, viewers were definitely taking an interest in the types of shows that Nick strived on when it first launched. Something seemed to change in the 2010s though. There were terrible cartoons that started airing, like Fanboy and Chum Chum. This show is just unappealing and it doesn't seem to have any real talent thrown into it. Planet Sheen was another mindless cartoon that just wanted to get attention from Jimmy Neutron, although this show was cancelled pretty quickly and nobody really talked about it. Terrible cartoons were not the only things that made Nickelodeon bad in this time period. There were several sitcoms that were just awful, and these are the shows that I think most people are happy to see are gone. I don't think there was anyone that actually cared for Fred the Show, considering it got cancelled pretty quickly. The actor who played Fred was in another Nick sitcom called Marvin Marvin, and it is hard to describe any positivity in that show. And now we go to the present, where cartoons and live-action shows air side by side. There are actually more sitcoms than cartoons now, which just isn't the best option for Nick. Several of the shows were made by Dan Schneider, who worked on awesome shows like Drake and Josh and The Amanda Show. The cartoons airing now on Nick are just not good. The Fairly Odd Parents used to be good, but it has gone downhill with the constant addition of new characters and jumping the shark several times. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles doesn't seem like anything groundbreakingly good. Spongebob has been complete garbage for many years after the first movie, along with Steven Hillenburg's exit from the show. However, the recent season has increased in quality, so there is still hope for SpongeBob. And then we have The Loud House, which is basically the one cartoon on this channel that I can actually call good and worth watching. It released in May 2016, and it's a cartoon that really helps Nickelodeon. If you watch it, you'll feel a slight sense of nostalgia because it feels like those mid to late 2000s cartoons like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends or My Life as a Teenage Robot. And it should, because the creator Chris Savino worked on tons of old cartoons. He was a storyboard artist and director on Dexter's Laboratory. He was a writer and story director on Foster's Home. He even worked as a storyboard artist on the incredible cartoon The Powerpuff Girls. So The Loud House is great and all, but it's not a show that can save Nick entirely. There is something wrong with the whole network itself, and The Loud House cannot make the channel good again if everything else sucks. So basically, most modern Nick cartoons are just alright, with the exception of The Loud House and some new SpongeBob episodes. Let's talk about the modern Nick sitcoms. We got stuff like The Thundermans, which is a show about a family with superpowers, and then we have Game Shakers, a show about kids making an app. There are other bad ones like Henry Danger and Legendary Dudas. All of these sitcoms just have a certain feel to them when you sit down and try to watch. It's like they put no effort into their content because they know that kids will watch it and laugh no matter what. Now you may be thinking that all kids sitcoms are bad and that it's always been this way. Well, that isn't exactly true. Nickelodeon has had some really good and notable sitcoms in the past like Ned's Declassified and even Zoe 101. Drake and Josh was also really hilarious and still holds up today in humor. The reason I keep mentioning Drake and Josh is that it's basically the golden standard of Nick sitcoms. This show proves that it's possible for sitcoms to be good, but we really aren't reaching that peak in the modern ones. There's just very little substance and humor in Nick's modern sitcoms, and that is one of the major things ruining the network. Dan Schneider made some really good live action shows in the past, but he also works on Game Shakers and Henry Danger. Now, I've watched some of Game Shakers, and it was just extremely unfunny and boring. It was legitimately hard to watch because the jokes were bad, and everything was just really slow. You might be thinking that the only reason I hate these modern sitcoms is that I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not as young as I used to be, and the sitcoms are designed for kids, so I shouldn't be laughing at any of it. While these live action shows seem to be targeted towards young kids, so was Ned's Declassified. That show also had middle school kids just like the ones you see now. The best part about Ned's Declassified is that the humor still holds up, not as well as before, but it's still a pretty funny show. So the real problem with Nickelodeon now? It's the fact that they just don't care much. Their cartoons have been getting worse over the years, but if they make more shows like The Loud House, then that would be amazing news. However, that wouldn't matter if the dumb, mindless sitcoms keep appearing and taking over the popularity of cartoons. When Nick started making cartoons, there was tons of success and a lot of people kept watching the awesome shows that came from the mid-90s to late 2000s. But now they're putting an emphasis on these trashy kid sitcoms that don't really have much substance. Their popularity is decreasing as tons of people who want to watch cartoons now will just head over to Cartoon Network. So overall, there is a lot that caused the fall of Nickelodeon. It is possible for the channel to be good again, although I don't think it can happen very soon. If Nick focuses more on cartoons like The Loud House, minimizes the mindless sitcoms, and actually puts effort into the whole network, then I think they can rise again. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's long, but I wanted to get the point across that Nick just really isn't good anymore. If you agreed or even disagreed with anything I said in this video, then be sure to comment below and let me know. Anyway, give a thumbs up if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.